Hello again, YouTube. My name is Sean, and this is part two of my introduction video, Coding with Sean. In this video, I wanted to go a little bit more in depth on where I started in my computer science degree and where I am now. So, I first went to college for mechanical engineering. I had to take calculus 2 3 to 4 times until I passed. And then in calculus 3, I did not pass calculus. So I ended up dropping out of college. It wasn't until at least I would think it's about 8 years until I decided to go back into school. Everybody has always told me that I am really good working with computers. So um, I decided to go with that strength of what everyone has been saying and switch my major from mechanical engineering to computer science. Now, the one thing that has shocked me, and it made you as well if you decide to go into computer science is just a fancy name for software development. So you'll be doing things like writing code for website, game development, anything that has to do with software. Not necessarily touching anything hardware related, like you won't be building computers, you won't be installing RAM. That I found out is more CIS, which is computer information systems. So that's more IT related stuff. So that was kind of a surprise to me when I saw the courses that I needed to take. They weren't anything like A plus certification, networking certification, cybersecurity, anything like that. I mean, you can definitely take them, but what I'm finding out so far is computer science is just more software rather than hardware. That's not an issue for me because at first I thought, I don't want to be a data monkey. I don't want to sit down in front of a computer and code for 8 hours every single day for 40 hours a week. Now I'm finding, you know what? That's actually kind of cool. It may not be for everybody. Initially I thought it wasn't for me, but it's actually kind of cool to sit down and look at code and try to figure things out. I've always been a fan of puzzles. Like I love doing puzzles. I love doing things like word search, Sudoku, and to take logical skills and apply it into computer science code like Java, Python, C++, assembly, Rust, any of the programming language, and try to figure out how to code in that to solve the problem. That's really cool to me to be able to do. So, yeah, I first started at Front Range Community College for my associates. I was really, really close. I should not have dropped out. I should have just simply changed majors, but at that time, I was not interested in computer science. Um, so, yeah, I changed my major in the spring of 24, I believe. And what I ended up doing was taking the introduction to computer science course. They had different options. You could have chosen Java, C++, or Python. I elected to go the Java route because I've heard Java was more difficult and I wanted a more difficult path. At that time, I thought C++ was something that Microsoft created. So I thought, okay, well, I've also heard C++ was kind of an outdated program. So, which obviously it is not now. C++ is like widely used, but I didn't know that back then. So I figured, okay, well, C++ is outdated. Python is too easy to learn. I can learn Python myself. So I elected to do Java, and I passed that course. The summer, I had to take a communications course that is a requirement, I believe now, is to have to take a public speaking course. Um, the fall, I had to take the second half of that Java course, which went more into depth. So I learned things like heaps, trees. I remember balancing trees. So I think a little bit of algorithm. I have to look at my notes because I'm not remembering at the top of my head. Um, so that concluded the Java, and then the final course for graduating with my associates from Front Range was taking assembly and computer architecture. That was one of the toughest classes I have ever taken. It makes you appreciate higher level languages like Java and Python. Assembly language is probably the lowest language there is to compile before machine code. So you have to learn things like your. Oh, are we finally getting thunder? It's finally raining in Colorado for once this year. Awesome. Anyways, so it was Microsoft Assembly 32-bit, and it was really it was one of the hardest courses because you have to learn things like memory registers like EAX, and you have to do things like the jump, move. Basically, in Python, you have like one line of code, just print hello world. In assembly, it is much, much, oh my gosh, it's much, much more difficult. Um, that was kind of interesting when I took the assembly course and then to learn things like Boolean algebra. So if you want to get into cybersecurity, you'll more than likely will need to learn Microsoft Assembly or whatever type of assembly. Uh, there's the Microsoft Assembly. There's Linux. I'm sure Apple has one themselves. So graduated Front Range Community College in the summer of 2025, and then for the fall semester, I got accepted into the fall semester for Colorado State University into their computer science program. I am in the general computer science right now. I have not really declared a concentration, but what I really want to do is um, do the computer science with a concentration in atmospheric research. So I'm thinking that would be more data science because I want to work for NOAA. One of the things that I want to do is take my computer science knowledge and apply it out in the field. So one of my favorite movies is Twisters. Like I love those two movies. I love the science behind that. I think it's amazing in Twisters 2 that came out, the recent one, was that they wanted to collapse tornadoes basically using formulas that's used in diapers. It's that's mind blowing that that's an actual science that they're looking at. So I want to take my computer science degree and kind of build like field instruments to help measure that kind of stuff. Like that's what I want to do. Um, and one of the things that I've actually done is take a Raspberry Pi and create a weather logger and then use winter holds to predict the trends, kind of use um, not necessarily like AI, but like blanking on it right now. I want to say regression models because I'm totally blanking on it right now. But basically, looking at the history of the CSV files and then try to calculate the average and predictions of that, and then plot it on my own web server with an API. So, it's basically weather related technology is what I really want to do. Um, so yeah, back to CSU. The fall semester, I've taken discrete topics, which was another hard course that I've taken. I have never seen a math course like that. So discrete topics, that's a required course no matter where you go. So you definitely do not want to cheat in that class because no matter which university you go to, you will have to take discrete topics. Um, discrete topics really, really helps if you take a logic class. So at Front Range, they had a philosophy of logic course that I took before I dropped out, and a lot of that information in that class actually helps you in discrete topics. So you have things like sets, unions, um, the pigeonhole problem was one of the big topics that we covered. So it's basically there is a lot of math, but it's to kind of help you understand what your code is doing. So it's more trying to simplify what your code is doing. So say if you have three if statements and they're nested, then you kind of know what the big O notation for that is. And you can use discrete topics to kind of prove, okay, what is the truth table of that statement? Is it going to be true, false? If I use an implicit, okay, that's going to be false. If I use an exclusive or, so truth table, that's definitely one thing you want to memorize for discrete topics. That's basically the first thing that you learn is the truth tables, and then you go a little bit more in depth. Um, and then you work on proofs. So you have proof by cases, and there's another proof that I can't quite remember now. But anyways, so that's definitely a course you want to pay attention in. You do not want to slack off in that class because it is definitely easy to fall behind. I thought I was gonna fail that class and I ended up passing, I think, with a 75, 76% in that class. So after that class, I took uh, the first software development course, which was a solo development class. In that class, I learned about k-mean clustering. Still can't tell you what it does, but all I know is that it uses some kind. It's a machine learning algorithm. Is all I was able to decipher from that. Um, so what we had was we had a CSV file of people who rated songs, and then we had to find songs that they might like. So that was a little bit of machine learning. And then the final project was to add a couple more things. I won't say what the other things are, but they were free choice. Um, so yeah, I can't really go into much detail because I don't want a professor to look at this video and flag me. But it was definitely a fun project. So you basically learn a little bit of machine learning and then how to um, make predictions. And then um, I elected to do the final project, so I just had to add a couple more things. What I elected to do was kind of just make it more like Pandora. So I found an API to look up song lyrics for the songs that were in the CSV file. And obviously I made a web page because the Gradle commands were not very user friendly. If you don't know what Gradle is, that's fine. Um, Yeah, I don't want to go into too much detail because I don't want to give out freebies. And then the class that I just finished was Introduction to C++. So we used a textbook by Bjorn's Strup, I believe his last name is, the creator of C++. That was kind of a medium language, so it had higher level language programming in terms of like how to write it, but then you also had to like pay attention to make sure you have your own structures, you don't have memory leaks. All right, that leads us to the upcoming fall semester. I'm not 100% certain what I'm going to take quite yet. Um, yeah, I initially started at Front Range for mechanical engineering, and then I dropped out, came back for computer science, graduated Front Range with my associates in computer science, transferred to Colorado State for the bachelor's program. Looking at graduation of 27, 28. It just depends on if I decide to go into a concentration or switch into data science. Um, yeah, and then I just really want to apply my computer science degree into atmospheric research. The one thing that made it click for me with the atmospheric research part, if you ever have the chance and you're in Wyoming, Cheyenne, there's a place called the Wyoming Supercomputer. And it's just west of Cheyenne, and I don't know if you can visit it now, but I know NCAR or the NOAA owns it or owned it. And it was a place where you can go in and you can basically see an actual supercomputer. And it does calculations for, I could be completely wrong, but I think it does all of the calculations for the National Weather Service, NOAA, um, AccuWeather, which I think AccuWeather might actually be in Norman. So I'm I'm a little bit confused because I know Norman I think has a giant data center for atmospheric research too. Um, I think I've also read where Colorado State actually has like a contract, maybe even Colorado University, CU Boulder has a contract with the Wyoming supercomputer. But it's really cool. So they have um, I remember one of the displays they had was the Marshall Fire, which happened around Superior, US 36, around Denver. I remember they used, I think it was like satellite imagery to track where the fire could grow next. Um, it also teaches you whether, so you have things like, okay, what exactly is a hurricane? How do tornadoes form? And then once you progress a little bit, they have a giant window of the actual supercomputer that you can look at. So you have your filtration system, and then if you look up on the ceiling, they had these yellow cables, which I believe were fiber optic cables. Um, I think the current supercomputer they have is either Lammy or Yellowstone. I can't remember. And then they had an actual display of the old one, which I think was, no, I'm thinking Cheyenne or Lammy. I don't remember now. But the supercomputer that they had before, which I believe was Yellowstone, you were able to actually look it up, look at it close. You couldn't like touch anything or remove anything, but you can look at it and just see like rows and rows and rows of the servers that they had. So that was really cool. Um, and then towards the end, they had basically my exact same idea that I've had with the Raspberry Pi, where they use um, there's some kind of microcontroller. I want to say Arduino, if I'm saying that right. They had like an Arduino where they had like a weather balloon and were recording data. And I thought, that's kind of cool that I'm kind of doing the same thing just with the Raspberry Pi because that's what I know how to code in right now. So going to the Wyoming supercomputer, like it really narrowed the bridge between computer science and atmospheric research because there was a time when I thought, I don't really think I can do what I want to do. Like, yes, I'm in computer science, but I don't really think there's a bridge between computer science and atmospheric. Completely wrong. 100% completely wrong. I could not believe how big that bridge was. It's like a 10-lane bridge. I just could not believe there is actually, it's, it's still amazing me to this day that there's that um, weather research needs computer scientists. They need somebody to program the sensors that they're sending into like tornadoes or into the atmosphere to, detect the ionization of northern lights. It is such a big field that I did not realize until I went there. Um, so yeah, I think I covered just about everything there is. I talked about my journey from Front Range to CSU, what I want to do, the courses that I've taken. Yeah. So that's my journey. That's how I started, from mechanical engineering to computer science. Went from Front Range to CSU. I know I'm repeating myself. I'm just trying to think out loud what all I've done. So, yeah. Thank you for watching.